There was yet another horrific machete attack in Melbourne over the weekend, this time at an Altona shopping centre where a man was attacked by a group of men demanding his mobile phone.
One of the most ridiculous political ideas I think I have ever heard of, and that is being supported, it seems, by senior Victorian police.
But first, the Victorian government has once again tackled violent crime with all the force of a wet tissue and the uncompromising power of a bin. No, that's not just a pithy rhetorical phrase on my part. They're actually using a bin.
You know what, mate? I've seen some absolutely ridiculous political ideas in my time, but what Victoria just rolled out takes the bloody cake. Picture this. You're a teenage gang member who's been terrorising Melbourne suburbs with your trusty machete, slashing innocent people, stealing cars at knife point, and generally making life hell for ordinary Victorians. Well, guess what? The Victorian Labor government has just made your life so much easier. They've installed 40-plus machete disposal bins right outside police stations across the state. That's right, they've basically created a 24/7 weapons shopping centre for criminals, complete with government-funded security and convenient locations. Assistant Police Commissioner Brett Curran, and I'm sure he's a decent bloke just following orders from his political masters, was wheeled out to announce this absolute masterpiece of public policy. He said, and I quote, "These bins provide an opportunity for families who might be concerned about their kids and machetes." Families concerned about their kids and machetes? Mate, if your family conversation goes like this: "Johnny, have you got a machete? Because the nice policeman wants you and me to have a family trip down to the police station. You've got bigger problems than a disposal bin can solve." But here's where it gets even more ridiculous. Curran then had what he probably thought was a moment of honesty when he admitted the weapons weren't simply going to disappear and that criminals would find new weapons, including, and he gives them a helpful tip here, those readily available in your kitchen. So let me get this straight. We're banning machetes because they're too dangerous, but we're telling criminals they can just use kitchen knives instead. It's like banning cars because of drunk driving and then saying, "Don't worry, you can still use motorcycles." Before we dive deeper into this madness, if you want the uncensored truth about what's really happening in Australia, the raw, unfiltered investigations that mainstream media won't touch, join our Patreon. We're the resistance exposing the corruption and stupidity that's destroying our country. Link in the description.
Now, this idea involves machetes, those long single-bladed weapons of choice by out-of-control teenage crime gangs, where they are not only used to terrify people woken in the dead of night by home invaders, threatening them and stealing their cars and phones.
Now, let's talk about why this machete bin idea is so bloody insulting to every Victorian who's been a victim of crime. The Crime Statistics Agency just released data that should make every politician hang their head in shame. Victoria recorded 627,000 criminal offences in just 12 months. That's a 17% increase. We're talking about 208 arrests every single day. That's the highest arrest rate since electronic records began in 1993. And here's the kicker. Youth crime is absolutely exploding. Kids aged 10 to 17 are committing 63% of all robberies, 46% of aggravated burglaries, and 27% of car thefts. These aren't kids stealing lollies from the corner shop, mate. These are violent criminals who happen to be young. Car theft has jumped 47% to its highest levels since 2002. There's been a 73% increase in stolen cars being involved in crashes, and 6 people have died as a result. But instead of addressing the root cause of this crime wave, what does Premier Jacinta Allen do? She installs machete bins and says, I kid you not, I know kids can be challenging from time to time when they've got something they want to do. Challenging? Premier, we're not talking about kids who won't eat their vegetables. We're talking about armed teenagers who are terrorising entire communities. Here's what really gets my blood boiling. In March, the Allen government introduced what they called the toughest bail laws in Australia. They removed the principle that remand should be a last resort and made community safety the overarching principle. Sounds good, right? Wrong. The crime statistics I just mentioned, they're from after these tough new bail laws came into effect. The laws have been an absolute disaster. Sure, they've increased the number of youth offenders in custody by 100%, but crime rates have continued to skyrocket. Why? Because the fundamental problem isn't just bail, it's a justice system that's gone completely soft on criminals.
I mean, what kid who's done, 10, 12, 15 home invasions, stolen 14 Mercedes Benzes, is going to willingly go down there with their face uncovered and shove a machete in a bin?
Police Minister Anthony Carbines admitted the crime data was unacceptable, but then had the audacity to say the bail laws would show results in future quarters. Mate, people are being attacked, robbed and killed right now. They don't want to wait for your future quarters. The reality is simple. When you've got repeat offenders cycling through the system faster than a revolving door, when there are no real consequences for breaking the law, and when politicians are more worried about the rights of criminals than the safety of victims, you get exactly what Victoria has now, a crime epidemic. This machete bin nonsense isn't an isolated incident of stupidity. Victoria has been at the forefront of the most punishing, ridiculous policies in Australia for years. Remember the COVID lockdowns? Victoria had the longest cumulative lockdown in the world, 262 days of house arrest for law-abiding citizens. They had an 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew, 5-kilometre travel limits, and mandatory masks even when you were alone outdoors. International experts called it excessive. Mental health professionals documented the devastating psychological impact. Small businesses were destroyed. But Dan Andrews and his crew thought they knew better than the rest of the world. And what did we get for all that suffering? Victoria still had some of the worst outcomes in Australia, and the economic and social damage is still being felt today. Now they're applying the same backwards thinking to crime. Instead of punishing criminals, they're punishing law-abiding citizens by making them live in fear. Instead of addressing the root causes, they're creating feel-good policies that make headlines but solve nothing. You want to know what would actually work? It's not rocket science, mate. Other countries and states have figured this out. First, real consequences for crime. When New Zealand introduced tougher bail tests, similar to what Victoria claims to have, bail grants dropped by 50% and crime rates actually fell. But Victoria's version is all show and no substance. Second, parental responsibility laws. If your 14-year-old is out at 2 a.m. with a machete terrorising neighbourhoods, you as the parent should face consequences too. Make parents accountable for their kids' actions and watch how quickly they start paying attention. Third, swift and certain justice. The longer the delay between crime and consequence, the less effective the deterrent. Fast-track courts for repeat offenders, immediate consequences for bail breaches, and sentences that actually reflect the seriousness of the crimes. Fourth, electronic monitoring that actually works. Not the joke system they have now where offenders can cut off ankle bracelets with no immediate response. Real-time monitoring with instant police response when someone violates their conditions. But instead of any of these proven solutions, we get machete bins. It's like trying to stop a bushfire with a water pistol while telling everyone you're taking decisive action. The rest of the world is laughing at us, mate. The New York Post ran a story titled "Australian State Rolls Out Machete Disposal Bins Ahead of Ban." Fox News covered it as an example of failed progressive policies. American social media influencers are using Victoria as a punchline about what happens when you let the lunatics run the asylum. And you know what? They're right to laugh. This is embarrassing. We used to be known as a country that didn't take crap from criminals. Now we're known as the place that installs convenient weapons storage for gang members. Brett Curran admitted that criminals will just move to kitchen knives when machetes are banned. So what's next? Kitchen knife disposal bins, screwdriver amnesty programs, baseball bat buybacks. The fundamental problem isn't the weapon, it's the criminal holding it. But Victoria's politicians are too gutless to admit that, so they focus on the tools instead of the people using them.
Now, the very smart state government, after introducing their useless sale ban, decided theft would, from September, make it illegal to carry such a weapon. Now, why you would legally be able to wander around the suburbs at night with a long-bladed weapon is beyond me, but no, it would become illegal to do that from September.
Here's what really makes me angry about this whole situation. While politicians are installing machete bins and patting themselves on the back for their innovative solutions, ordinary Victorians are living in fear. Teachers are sleeping in their cars because they can't afford rent in safe neighbourhoods. Families are afraid to go out at night because youth gangs are roaming the streets. Small business owners are being robbed repeatedly because criminals know there are no real consequences. And what's the government's response? Here's a bin for your machete. Please dispose of it responsibly after you've finished terrorising innocent people. It's a slap in the face to every victim of crime, every family living in fear, and every police officer trying to do their job with one hand tied behind their back by politicians who care more about looking progressive than keeping people safe. The Allen government has had years to address this crime crisis. Instead, they've made it worse with soft-on-crime policies, reduced police powers, and a justice system that treats criminals like victims and victims like inconveniences. Victoria used to be a great state. Now it's becoming a cautionary tale about what happens when ideology trumps common sense, when virtue signalling replaces effective policy, and when politicians care more about their image than the safety of the people they're supposed to serve. The machete bins are just the latest symbol of a government that's completely lost touch with reality. And until Victorians wake up and demand real change, not feel-good gestures and political theatre, this crime crisis will only get worse. If you're as fed up as I am with this madness, join our Patreon community where we expose the truth about what's really happening in Australia. We're not afraid to call out the politicians, the policies, and the propaganda that's destroying our country, because someone has to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Link in the description. Join the resistance today. To see the latest Australian crisis, click this video here.